Alright, welcome back to another video. This is Klein Pulse 996 restoration. Yeah, so basically my friend Josh hit me up saying if I service other people's bikes. He wanted yeah, the garys.projects full resto style. Yeah, I'm pretty humbled by that. Normally I don't do it. But yeah, maybe it's something I can offer in the future if people want it. But yeah, basically Josh, donated a bunch of stuff before. He donated like a bike, pedals. So I was more than happy to do it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the vid. And yeah, here it is. All right, here's the bike. Yeah, it's a Klein Pulse 996, I believe. But yeah, overall it's in pretty good condition. Starting off with the grips, grip shift, and the SRAM 1x8 grip shifter. Here you got the Diacom DP7 brakes, profile stem, aluminum bars. Yeah, the same on this side as well, same setup. Profile stem, probably 120, I'm thinking. And then there's this stem adapter here. My friend's a little bit taller, so I'll probably put that on. And then, yeah, these RockShox Indy Cs. Pretty good condition, you can see. Yeah, the Diacom VC737 brakes. A little bit of rust on the pivot, but pretty good overall. These Gravel King SKs, Panaracer, Maverick rims, laced to STX, I think, STX RC. And then yeah, here's the Klein frame, super light. See the graphics there, cool aluminum finish. Yeah, just water bottle cage, size large. And then the Olivio front D. And then the Sugino cranks here, some of the rust on the bolts, crank bolts, some rust on the pedals there. Running cages here, a little bit of chipping on the sticker here, but yeah, Dior LX 8-speed rear D. Cassette seems pretty good condition. Yeah, here's the brakes. You can see it's STX RC rear hub as well, and then yeah, the same rims, Maverick. But yeah, cool little drive side sticker there. And then yeah, the Diacom VC737s. But yeah, you can see the tire still has the little hairs on the tread, so I think they're pretty new. And then yeah, just seat post. I don't know what seat post that is, but this Pentraga FS10 saddle looks pretty cool. Looks pretty slim, pretty soft as well. Yeah, and that's the bike. Pretty good condition overall, so yeah, we'll see what I can do to it. Alright, couple of things that I noticed was the front hub was a little bit shaky, so I'll probably retake a look at the bearings there. Josh mentioned that the headset could be a little bit loose, but yeah, a good way to test this is put on the front brake and then with the other hand put it around the headset and shake it. But yeah, I'm just filming with one hand, so you just have to trust me. And then Josh wanted to replace the BB as well. It seemed pretty good, but yeah, once we take it off, we'll see. There's not that much play in it, and it spins fairly well. But yeah, we'll take it off and then we'll take a look at it, see if we need to replace it. Yeah, you can see it's pretty smooth there. And then yeah, a little tip before you start, I put WD-40 on all the bolts. So yeah, this headstand bolts. What this does is makes it a little bit easier to take off everything, and when you're trying to get the rust off these bolts, makes it the work's already kind of started. But yeah, just go through all the bolts, put some WD-40 on there, and just let it sit for a few minutes. Alright, here just lay your tools out, so Allen key, shifter, button bracket tool, crank remover tool, my little chain breaker tool, my multi-tool, pedal wrench, and wire snippers, and here I usually use a box to put all my stuff in. You can also use the lid as well as like a little tray for like bolts or whatever. Yeah, usually that's how I separate it out, keep everything together. Yeah, another tip here, just got some gloves, disposable gloves, pretty good I think. Yeah, so here I'm just taking off the cranks. It was actually a lot tighter. I tried tapping it with the hammer. I didn't go too ham just because I just got to be careful with this. But yeah, I didn't want to take any risks, so I ended up just putting some penetrating oil on there, and then yeah, it came off fairly easy. They're on like super tight, but yeah, I was able to get them off with the penetrating oil. And then the next thing I was doing is, yeah, just basically taking off the chain. So you just put it on the smallest cog on the chain ring and the hub, and that'll make it a little bit easier because it'll give you more slack for the chain. And then here, just taking off all the cables, taking off the the rear D cable, making sure that I'm keeping everything together because I'm gonna probably use a lot of it. Use the housing at least, and then yeah, just wind up your cables, keep it nice and neat. Here, yeah, taking off the rear D, pretty easy. Here I was taking off, yeah, I was trying to save the cable ends as well. Yeah, I just tried to save everything because yeah, otherwise I don't know, you're just chucking it out into the into landfill anyway. So save what you can. And then here, yeah, just taking off the front mech cable. Yeah, so basically, yeah, once you undo all your cables, you can wind them up. Some of these cables I'll either save or reuse since they weren't rusted through. But yeah, sometimes you can see how if there's a kink, sometimes I like to just cut it because when I'm like pulling it through, it just makes it easier. So yeah, just cut it off before the kink. And yeah, that was pretty straightforward. Nothing too crazy here. Just taking off the V brakes. Yeah, no real problems here. Just yeah, unwind them. Sometimes it's easier just to unwind them if you take the wheel off first, but I like to keep the wheel on when I'm taking off the headset because sometimes if it's tough, you can use the wheel for a little bit of leverage. And then yeah, here I've already put WD-40 on the bolt, so it came off pretty easy. This stem lengthener came off pretty easy as well. And then here another problem I came up to was there was like this little washer and I couldn't get it off for some reason. So yeah, I had to be real careful because I wasn't going to replace the headset or anything, and I didn't want to damage it. So what I ended up doing was just taking my time, and I end up using a little screwdriver to kind of pry that second washer out. Yeah, it took a little bit of time, but yeah, it's better to be careful than to like break apart or something, and then you got to replace it. So I ended up just prying it a little bit all the way around, just a washer side to side, and you can see, yeah, eventually it came off. You can see there's like a little plastic insert there that was, kind of hard to take off, but then yeah, there was like a metal washer, so I was just prying on that metal washer. But yeah, it came off and no damage to any of the parts. And then here taking off the fork and the wheel, pretty straightforward. Here taking off the back wheel with those rear-facing dropouts. And then yeah, another issue I had was taking off these V-brakes. Yeah, for some reason when I unwound it, I think someone must have did the bolts on real tight and then end up taking off the brake boss as well. You can see here one has one without. So what I wanted to do was kind of take this off and put the brake boss back on. And then to do that, you can use a little socket tool. It kind of just fits on there, gets just enough leverage, so just make sure you push it down and then use an Allen key on the other side and then just undo it. After doing that, it was, yeah, it was easy. And then yeah, just putting the brake boss on back here, just being real careful because you don't want to strip it. When you're putting it on, make sure it's tight, but not like super tight, so you're busting the threads out. But yeah, it should be pretty tight because that's where the brake is going to go. And then here, yeah, just taking off the bottle cages, bottle cage, and the cranks. So yeah, taking off the cranks, step one, just basically undo the tool all the way. This is the steps I always do. And then you put it in the, you put it in the hole. Make sure the threads are clean. When you're doing it, another tip I like to do is tighten it with a wrench. Not super tight, but tight enough so the threads are kind of pretty flush and they're all the way in. And then yeah, you just wind it down. Go slow when you do this, and then just try to push the thread out. And then yeah, this was pretty easy because I think someone put grease on the tapers, so it came out. And then same on the other side. Unwind the tool all the way. Put the tool all the way into the threads. Make sure it's straight. Tighten it with the shifter. Another tip you can do is kind of spin the crank arm around to see if it's rotating straight. And then once you do that, you should be good. Yeah, every time I've done this technique, I haven't busted any threads or busted a crank. So yeah, those are my tips. Yeah, if you ever screw up a crank arm and pull out the threads, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it sucks. So yeah, try to share this tip with everyone. And then here, yeah, just taking out the BB. So yeah, just put the tool in there. Sometimes people put like a bolt to hold the tool in there, but I just kind of use my hand. Yeah, and yeah, it came out. Just make sure you unwind it the right way. Same with the other side. Just push it up, down with your thumb, and then use a shifter to kind of unwind it. And yeah, here's the BB. So yeah, it turned relatively smoothly, but I think yeah, we're going to replace it. So yeah, here's the inside BB. You can see it's pretty clean. Not too bad, so I'm going to clean that out as well. Here, just taking off the seat posts. Easy here, just unwind it with the Allen key. Yeah, when you're clamping with the bike stand, especially on aluminum frames, just make sure you're real careful about how tight it goes, because you can end up like pressing or like damaging the frame. And these Kleins are like super thin aluminum, so yeah, just gotta be super careful. But yeah, I actually like cracked my phone in my my bike stand before, so I'm always real careful with my clamp now. But yeah, here's it all taken apart. I think it looks pretty sick. So what we're going to do is clean it up. And the method I use is I just use a brush. I use a light detergent and soap spray. Spray it all down, wiping it. I've sped it up here, but yeah, I actually spent a bit of time doing this just to get all the residue off. Some of the old grease, there's like some sticky stuff on there. But yeah, it's really just putting in the time, and you know, you can clean however much you want to clean it. Because this was for someone else, I want to do a really good job. And then here, yeah, I'm gonna go with it. Do a run of T-cut as well. T-cut's basically like a kind of like a bit of cream with a very, very fine abrasive, and it kind of protects the frame a little bit, gets rid of oxidization or stops oxidization, and gets rid of small scratches, and makes the paint look really cool. So yeah, once again, I sped it up. Took a bit of time, but yeah, I think it's looking real good here. I'm not sure you could see some of the marks on it before, but definitely, I was really happy with how this cleaned up. I think it's looking super sweet. And then yeah, I was messaging Josh, and he said, yeah, I could take off this large sticker. So yeah, I've been wanting to get rid of that just because it was already peeling at both corners. So yeah, this is kind of super satisfying to take apart. But yeah, that's basically the frame. That's all done. Pretty hyped with how the frame turned out. Everything came off real easy. The next thing I'm going to do is clean out all the parts and try to get rid of as much rust as possible. And yeah, that's it. Okay, so I'm going to give these parts a clean. First thing I do is get a nylon brush and just brush off all the excess dirt and grease, get as much off as you can. And then I'm going to soak all the bolts and the parts that have rust on them in evaporust. Evaporust is basically an agent that helps get rid of rust. The good thing about it is, yeah, it doesn't damage your parts or anything, unlike white vinegar, which I've used in the past. If you leave it in there for too long, it can pit it, but yeah, evaporust doesn't harm your parts at all. So here I'm just, yeah, taking everything apart, taking all the bolts, screws, everything that, and then just, yeah, putting them in a jar, because I'm going to pour some evaporust in there, and then all the other parts I'm putting in a little tub. And then here, yeah, you can just see me pouring some in, just covering it up. Yeah, so just make sure you cover it, because you don't want your evaporust to evaporate, because yeah, it's a little bit pricey, but I think it works well. And yeah, every time I do this evaporust, I always miss a part, so make sure you check all your parts, make sure you got everything, just so you can do everything in one go. So you can see the skewer, the little brake cable guides, and then here's the next day. You can see the result. Yeah, it worked really well on these toe clips. I was so surprised. If you saw it before, they were kind of pretty rusty, and it came off super clean. There was no scrubbing or anything. The pedals, there was rust on the spindle and the screws, and they just came off. Yeah, the same with the rest of the stuff. It worked pretty well on all of it. So yeah, what you want to do is take it out, give it a rinse, give it a wash off, and then protect it with WD-40. Yeah, because what you want to do is just stop it from flash rusting again. But yeah, here there's a little container thing from Dicel 280. I think it's pretty cool, but I use it for bolts, and it has a handle that can fold down and stuff. But yeah, you just give everything a rinse out. You can also reuse evaporust, which is awesome. You just filter it back into a container, and then you can just reuse it. It keeps working. And then here, yeah, I'm just spraying everything with WD-40. Kind of acts like a cleaner, as well as protects it from flash rusting as well. It leaves like a very thin film on it. So yeah, that's my method that I use, and I've done this in the past, and it's worked pretty well. So yeah, yeah, works for me. So yeah, usually I let that sit for a while, and then while I'm letting that sit, I'm going to take these grips off. What I ended up doing was, yeah, using WD-40 a little bit in there, just to take off the grips. For some reason, the grips were like super hard to take off. I don't know why. I had to use like a zip tie, WD-40, but they're on like super tight. But yeah, if you use WD-40 on any rubber, you want to wash it off after. So yeah, just make sure you give the grips a rinse and stuff after you do that. And then here, just taking off the levers. Once again, putting WD-40 on the bolts. You can see this bar came out pretty clean. It was in pretty good condition, so I just need to clean it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak these levers in evaporust, because they have a little bit of rust on the inside of them. You can see in the lever here, just on that little pivot, and then on the bolts a little bit. So I'm going to give that a little bit of a soak as well. Alright, so yeah, gave them a quick soak. You can see here I was just checking it, wasn't ready. 24 hours later, it was good. And then I ended up getting rid of that little sticker with a bit of WD-40 too. Alright, so yeah, taking off the grip shifts. I was going to take these cables out because I'm replacing them. And yeah, basically online it just said you just pull them off. So that's what I did, but sometimes this pin falls out. But yeah, you just basically just put it back into the notch and then push it together. But here, I'm just going to take the wire out first. Yeah, pretty easy, taking it out, just pull it out. And then here, there's also this plastic little cover that you can pop out. And I think what it does is it basically helps you kind of feed the cable in. if you're kind of replacing the cables on the handlebars. But yeah, initially I thought that you could just take that off and replace the cable, but yeah, it doesn't seem like it. And then here, just putting in that little pin thing, the little spring, and then just to put it together, you just kind of push it on. Um, yeah, pretty straightforward. I thought it'd be more complex than this, or there'd be a better way to feed the cable in without pulling it apart. But yeah, apparently this is the way to do it. Here I popped off that plastic cable first, and I thought maybe I can just feed the cable through there. But yeah, after turning it around a little bit, I couldn't find a way to just feed the cable in or pull the cable out. So it looks like you have to actually pull the little twisting thing off to get the wire out, which is yeah, pretty strange. I thought it would be designed in a way where it would be easier to get the cable out. But here, yeah, you can just see me pulling it apart slowly so the pin doesn't pop out. But you can see how it works as the cable feeds in through here. When you turn it, it puts tension on the cable and adjusts the gears. And then here, yeah, just taking out the cable again on the other side. So yeah, these are in pretty good condition actually. They work pretty well, turn pretty well. Here's how you put that little piece back in. You just push it in. It's just friction fit. So there wasn't too much work to do here. I'm going to wait for the cables to come, and then here just winding the barrel adjusters all the way in, and yeah, these are ready to go. All right, so after the parts have been soaked in WD-40 for a little bit, I just give them a quick brush off all the remainder rust with WD-40, make them look nice and shiny. And then here, yeah, just a little bit of warning. So if you have parts which are cheaply powder coated, evaporust is going to lift that right off. So yeah, for this ring, I kind of knew in the past it would kind of affect the paint a little bit, so I didn't end up soaking this at all. But yeah, you can tell by, if you like look real close, you can tell it's not like a proper finish. It's just been like painted or something. So yeah, just be careful of that. You can see things that are kind of done properly. Yeah, it won't affect it. And then here, yeah, you can see this little cable guide had some rust on it or some dirt on it, and it just brushed it off with a wire brush again, just WD-40 wire brush. That came up real clean. And then here, all the parts are looking good. Yeah, the brakes, the chain rings, all these bolts are clean now. But what I got to do is I got to wash these other parts here, just the stem and stem adapters, toe clips, all the stuff that I didn't soak in the evaporust basically. All right, here just cleaning it with hot soapy water. Yeah, just give it a brush, pretty straightforward. And then here, yeah, cleaning it with a microfiber cloth. You can also use WD-40 on areas that need a little bit extra, like if there's some rust on there still, or maybe some residue, you can clean it off with WD-40. And then here, yeah, just putting in effort, making everything look nice. Yeah, some people don't show the cleaning process in the videos, but yeah, I think for restorations is actually a huge part of restorations is cleaning stuff up, making it look good. So yeah, I like to show it, and I think yeah, it looks pretty cool here as well. Like you can see all the parts laid out. So yeah, all the parts are here laid out, super clean, no rust anywhere. And yeah, what I'm going to do is start putting everything together, so I don't have like tons of bits just lying around ready to get lost. Yeah, just putting on the chain ring. But yeah, with laying out the bolts, I've kind of done this or done a bunch of bikes, so I kind of know where the bolts are going to go, the bolts and washers. But yeah, if you're unsure, you can always take a photo before you take it apart and just reference the photo. But the good thing about most of the bolts is you can kind of work out where they're going to go. They're only going to fit in a certain area. But yeah, usually I can just do it by just by guessing now. So yeah, it's not really too bad. Yeah, putting all the bolts together, putting everything together, including yeah, the little brake pads, all those little washers in there. And then here, yeah, just taking a look at how the springs go into the brake arms. I'll have a little video on that a bit later. And then here, just putting the toe clips on. All right, so the next thing that maybe trip you up is now they've taken the springs out and these kind of boss covers, like, yeah, how I'm going to put them all back together. So the screw should, on these ones, they should kind of face towards the bottom, pointing towards the round pivot. So that one fits there. If you see, I can try another piece. It's not facing towards the bottom. It has to be coming out from the outside. So yeah, so now that I know that this piece goes on like that, I know that for the other arm it's going to be exactly the same. So I'll just put it on there for now. Yeah, so there's two pieces left, so they must go on these other arms. Once again, you can see which way the screw faces, so that's a little bit of a guide. And then you're going to end up with 4 of these springs. So they're going to come in a pair again, so they're going to be 2 and 2, which are the same. And you can kind of just look at the springs and work out which 2 are the same, so you can see, hey, these look the same, keep them together, and then the other 2 are the same, keep them together. And then here I'm going to test one of the springs. Yeah, you just basically take this piece off, put it in. So I'm basically doing a dry run here before I put grease in there, just to make sure I know where the pieces go. And then you can see, hey, this piece goes on, the screw pushes on the pivot, the tension is going the right way. So yeah, this is perfect for this one. So I know that this spring is for this arm. And then just to show you, I'm going to put the other spring on, and you can kind of see, yeah, it fits and it could work, but it puts the little adjustment screw in a weird position, so you know that, yeah, you know that's not for this arm. So after that, you basically worked it out. You know, this spring goes there, these 2 other spring goes with their matching arms, and this spring goes there. Yeah, if you're having trouble, we can also look for a manual online. Sometimes they have schematics on how the spring goes, but that's a pretty easy way to work it out. Alright, now that you got it all sorted, you're going to go ahead and put grease on the spring and on the pivots. Pretty easy here. And then what I end up doing is just winding out the tension screw so it was showing 2 threads, so it's even on all the brakes. And that's it. Alright, we're going to clean up the shocks now, take a look in them. You can see this is a 22 piece that goes on the top. The shocks are in pretty good condition, so I'm just going to take a look at the inside and see what it's like. And first thing I do is just unwind all the tension, so there's no tension on the caps. And here, yeah, I'm just giving it a squeeze. You can see it works really well, so I think these are going to be pretty good on the inside, but I think it's worth taking a look anyway. Yeah, here, just pulling it out. Yeah, you can see they're pretty much perfect. There's no, like, even any dirt or grime on there, just some grease. Yeah, you can see the other one's perfect too, but then yeah, also you look at the inside, they're like super clean, so I'm not going to worry about cleaning these up. I think they're still good to go. Basically put everything back together, give it a bit of clean with the detergent spray, clean the hoods. And then here I'm using Slickoleum light grease that doesn't wear away rubber. And then just putting some on the stanchions here just to give it a little bit of a freshen up. But just, yeah, make sure fingers are clean before you put it on. And yeah, put it all the way around. And then, yeah, you just do the same with the other side. And that's it. Alright, so the last thing to check is, if you remember, the front wheel was a little bit wobbly. So sometimes you can fix this by just tightening the cups. But since I've taken the wheel apart, I just want to check the bearings anyway. So yeah, I actually have a tutorial about changing the bearings on your hub. So if you want an in-depth look at it, check that video out. But here, yeah, basically taking all the bearings out, just make sure you put them in a tray, make sure you count them. So yeah, you can see that one side the bearings were really good, but then the other side it was the bearings were super pitted. So I think at some stage maybe someone replaced the bearings on one side, but then you can see this cup here, it's pretty pitted as well. So I'm going to see if I can find a replacement part for this. I have replacement bearings already, so I can replace that. But yeah, so I can find a cup. So yeah, while I'm looking for the cup, I'm just going to put the wheel back together. So I just have to change that out when I find it, or when if I order one online. And then here, just pretty straightforward. Just make sure you pack it up with grease, put all the ball bearings back in, do the axle up so it's nice and snug, but it doesn't have any play in it. And yeah, that's it. Bike's pretty much ready to go. You can see I basically just lay them out in groupings so that when I'm building the bike, it just makes it a little bit easier. Yeah, so you can see the brakes, the cranks, and all the other stuff. Yeah, but the first thing I want to do is I want to get the seat post on this frame, because I don't want all my pressure to be going on this thin aluminum tubing. So yeah, just make sure you grease up your seat posts and just chuck that on. I remember the old height from before I took it apart. It was just at the insert, so I just the minimum insert, sorry, and then I just put it in there, and then here just clamping it down by the seat post, so you're not putting all the pressure on the frame. And then here just putting on the bottom bracket, just finger tight first using just the tool, and then I grease up both sides. And yeah, once again, just finger tight using the tool, and then just make sure the threads are nicely in there before you kind of crank down with the shifter. And then how tight do you want it? You want this pretty tight, because yeah, a lot of power is going to go through the bottom bracket. So yeah, don't do this one up too loose. And then yeah, just make sure both sides are nice and snug in there as well. And then here, putting on the crankset, nice shiny crankset now. Make sure you put a little bit of grease on the tapers. Make sure you do these up tight as well. The last thing you want to do is have square taper cranks on there loose or come loosened, because once they come loosened, you're gonna mess up the square taper inside the cranks, and then you can say goodbye to your cranks, which isn't good. And a little tip to tighten up cranks: you can put your crank arm on the chainstay as well, your hand on the chainstay, and that helps you get a little bit more leverage. There, putting on the rear D, here putting on the front D. Just make sure it clears the teeth when you're putting it on. It should be about 1 to 2 millimeters away from it, so you don't get any chain drop. But yeah, just kind of push it like that to check. And then also you want it to line up parallel, kind of like the cage and the chain rings to be parallel to each other, and that seems to work pretty well. And then here, just putting on the headset. It's just the same parts. I just cleaned it up with the cloth. They were in pretty good nick, so it was pretty easy. Just a little bit of detergent. And then here I'm just putting grease on again. So yeah, put the ball bearings in, put the little fork cover on there, make sure it's in the right order, and then here, yeah, lube up the cups as well. Sorry, grease up the cups as well, and then put those spacers in. Here, also, if you get grease on your steerer tube, don't forget to clean it up, because you don't want your stem to come loose when you're riding. But then, yeah, here I'm basically just installing the steer extender and yeah, and the stem. So everything is just loose on here for now, just to hold it together while I put everything together, I mean. And then once I get everything together, I'll adjust a pressure on the headset. But yeah, it's looking good. Here, putting on the front brakes. Yeah, just grease up the little areas where it's going to turn. And then there's like a little hole where you got to line your brake with. Usually there's 3, but for these forks, there's just one little hole. So yeah, just line it with that so it gets the right tension. And then here on the back, you get those 3 holes. Usually I put it on the middle. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Just screw them in, make sure it's tight. Here, another tip I like to do is put the front wheel in, so not all the weight's on the seat tube, the seat post. And then here, yeah, just put it in the handlebar in. Just be careful you don't scratch it because you spend all that time cleaning it. And then tighten the bolts evenly, one by one, alternating between each one to get even pressure. And then here, just putting on the brake levers and the grip shift and the grips. I use the grip to kind of measure out how far I want it, and then I just do it just finger tight for now until I get all the other parts on, but tight enough so if I bump it, it's not going to slide off or anything. And that's it for that. Yeah, you can see it's also pretty windy that day. I don't have any sound going because if I had the sound going, all you hear would be just wind noise, and that's no fun. But here, just putting on the grips on, just using water. Even using water, they were still really hard to get on. But yeah, once that dries, it should be sweet. I know people have used like hairspray and alcohol in the past, but water's always worked for me, so I'm sticking with that. Here, yeah, putting on the seat, and I remember it was pushed all the way forward, so try to keep the bike how the customer likes it. And then here, just adjusting the brake lever angle. So yeah, I did a little bit more of a more like 45-degree angle just because the guy is a little bit taller, and I think by kind of just gauging from the seat, this level of lever would be comfortable for him. But yeah, if someone's shorter, you might have them a little bit flatter, and then yeah, vice versa if you're taller. And then here, just putting on the gear cables, make sure you stretch them out like a guitar string. If you don't stretch them out, after a few rides, you might have to readjust your gears as well. But yeah, this definitely helps kind of reduce the amount of adjusting you need to do. But yeah, putting on these gear cables for the first time on grip shifters seemed yeah, it was kind of a little bit of pain for me just because yeah, the way they're designed, there's no easy way. You can't just slot it in like with the triggers. But yeah, basically you got to feed it through that little hole. You got to feed it all the way around. You got to feed it through this little chamber here. You got to take off the plastic bit. You got to pull apart the grip shifter a little bit. So yeah, already 2 pieces you're removing just to get the cable in, which I don't know, it seems kind of crazy that it was designed this way. Because like if you're out on the road and your gear cable snaps or something like that, you need to replace it. Yeah, it's going to be a huge pain, I reckon. But yeah, I don't know, whatever. Whoever designed it that way for a reason. Maybe it's for safety, I don't know. But yeah, I thought it was a little bit of a nuisance to kind of change. And then here, yeah, just putting in the cables. I put a little bit of bike lubricant, chain lube in the cables as well. It's like silicone based, so it won't wear down the housing or anything. But I do that and I find the cable slide really well after I do that. And then yeah, you can see here with the other one, if you try to push it through, it doesn't go around the curve for some reason. So you got to kind of like pull it out from the side and then push it back in. So yeah, once again, a little bit tedious on the grip shifts there. But yeah, what I like to do with all the housing is do a dry fit before I put in the cables in. So dry fit the gear cables, dry fit the brake cables. Make sure all your housing is the right size and you're happy with it before you put in the gear cables and brake cables. That way it makes it a lot easier once you're installing all your cables. And then here, yeah, you can see I'm putting on the rear derailleur cable. Yeah, pretty easy here. Not much to it. Just yeah, just tighten it down. Make sure you're in the lowest gear when you put the cable in. So when you turn it, it's going to go all the way up. And then same with the front mech here. Make sure you're in the right. Make sure you're in the lowest gear before you install the cable. And when you turn it, when you test it, it should work out. You can see it moving there. You can also see me going behind the wheel to install the derailleur because I don't have that much room on my balcony. But yeah, another tip is I kind of cut the cables if they're in the way. If they're too long, you just trim them a little bit. And then here I had to fix this housing, put a new end on there. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Yeah, you can see it was kind of windy. You can see by clouds it was windy that day. I was trying to get everything done before the sun went down. But yeah, I got most of it done. But yeah, just repeating the same process, a little bit of chain lube in the housing there, put all your cables in, make sure you clean it up with the cloth. Yeah, don't forget that little plastic springy thing. I always forget that, and I end up re-putting it on after I adjust all the brakes and everything. But yeah, that's basically it. Same with the front. Not too crazy there, nothing too crazy. Just feeding it through. Alright, so here putting in the brake pads for the front shock, or the front brake. So what I do is I like to just place it in there next to the rim. Just set them in there, and then you wind this until 7 threads are showing. 2's just showing at the moment, but you want to keep winding it until 7 threads are showing. And what that will do is kind of pull the pads towards the rim, and you can kind of tighten the pads from there, make sure they're super lined up. And then once they're lined up, you can go to the barrel adjuster again and wind it all the way back in, and that should leave you just enough gap for the wheel to spin pretty freely. And after that, you kind of just make sure you adjust the spring tension with those little screws next to the brake arms, depending on which side you want to pull it, to make sure when you spin the wheel, the pads aren't rubbing on the rim. And then yeah, that's the method I use, and it's probably the quickest way, I think, and it works pretty well for me. Alright, so I did the same thing with the back. Pretty straightforward, just do the same process. Make sure it doesn't rub on your brake pads, and then you're good. So yeah, the next thing I wanted to do was fix the front hub. If you saw the last episode, you'll see that one of the cones were kind of pitted, but I ended up finding this this spacer off an old hub, which I tried to get on, but then it didn't fit because it was the wrong threading size. So I was kind of bummed about that. So I needed to find another one, and I ended up having this old XA jub that I had. I took one side off and it was kind of pitted, but then the other side seemed pretty decent. So yeah, we'll give this a go and hopefully it works out. Yeah, one of the issues I had was my front axle was an M10, but I ended up taking this rear hub apart and it was M10 as well. So if anyone's looking for an M10 bearing cone, you can take apart a back hub. Yeah, so basically what I ended up doing was just taking off the old pitted cone off, and then putting on the new one, putting the new bearings in there, just making sure I had the right amount of bearings, none of the bearings fell out. Make sure I packed it up with grease, and yeah, just screw it on the new one, and then just make sure you try to get the tension as best as possible. Make sure there's no play but spin smoothly, and that was it. Worked out. And then here, yeah, you can see I'm showing you there's no kind of lateral play as well. So yeah, sometimes it might take a little while to get the tension right, but then yeah, it's worth it. And then here I'm just cleaning out the back cassette of the rear wheel, just using a rag and just some mild detergent spray. You just put the rag in between each of the cassette teeth, and yeah, just rotate it and it should clean it up. And then here, just fixing up the brakes one last time because I took the wheel out. And then yeah, after that, just snip off the cable and we're done. Alright, next thing to do was put on the chain. So yeah, Josh actually gave me a new chain with the bike, so it's an 8-speed chain. This is an 8-speed, so it worked out well. But yeah, I actually have a little YouTube video on how to install a new chain, so if you want to go into it in more detail, you can watch that. But yeah, basically you just wrap the chain around the front chain ring and then the biggest cog at the back, bypassing the derailleur, and then you add one link, break it, and then yeah, and then put it on. Make sure you put it through your derailleur the right way. Make sure it's not going on anything, and yeah, that's basically it. Just making sure it shifts properly. Yeah, you can see it's pretty windy, but yeah, you kind of get the idea. Yeah, first time doing grip shifts, but yeah, it seems alright. It seems like the same adjusting process. Just make sure when you're rotating it through the high and low gears, it's not making a bunch of noise, and you're good. Yeah, people in the past have asked me if I should make a video on how to kind of like index your gears. I might do that in the future, but yeah, for now, if you're struggling, you can check out the Park Tools one. It's pretty good. And in here, yeah, just putting on the pedals. Make sure you grease up the threads a little bit. Make sure you do it up tight. And then the very last thing was to tighten up the toe clips. I just had them on loose. So yeah, just make sure everything's tight. And yeah, that was the last thing. And here's the bike.
the video. Hope you liked it. I'm super hyped with how the Klein turned out. Yeah, I think it came out super clean. Yeah, let me know what you think and stay tuned for the next video. Peace.